Where did you find this guy?
Give me a break, Pete.
Hey, I only work with professionals.
Welcome to 2017. It's a new year and Capcom are kicking off with a new Resident Evil. But have no fear if, like me, you were disappointed with the recent direction of the franchise, then you should keep watching, because Resident Evil 7 is a completely new experience. One that takes a different direction to avoid the pitfalls of Resident Evil 6 and Revelations 2, which both suck. Big time.
Go tell Aunt Rhodey. Go tell Aunt Rhodey.
Resident Evil 7 puts you in control of Ethan Winters, who ventures down to Louisiana after receiving a message from his presumed dead wife Mia, only to find himself at the mercy of the horrific Baker family. From the opening moments it's clear, this is a whole new Resident Evil. Yet, despite the game's shift to a first-person perspective, the opening act of the game feels similar to anyone who may have played older Resident Evil games. The game features a strong grindhouse theme as the first section of the game gets incredibly violent and brutal. Resident Evil makes it clear that the Baker family is messed up. The family dinner scene you may have seen in several trailers is as horrific as the table is littered with grotesque items. Lucas, the son, repeatedly throws food at you, and then Jack tries to force feed you it before screaming at his wife. These opening scenes are incredible because it establishes the violent, disgusting tone of Resident Evil 7, while also quickly establishing the Baker family as some of the most unique and entertaining villains in the franchise's long history. Despite this, Resident Evil 7 is a throwback for the franchise, trading the more action-heavy gameplay of more recent entries for something slower, more focused. The environments are smaller and the atmosphere is at just the right levels of scary. Not terrifying, but enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. And the survival aspects of the game come back too. A smaller, tighter inventory system forces you to be careful and make every shot count. And while there is a clear emphasis on maintaining your distance, the combat never felt particularly challenging. The monsters, referred to as moulded in the game, never really felt threatening to me. If anything, they felt like minor distractions that were fairly easy to put down with a few clear shots to the head. There's not much variety either. They come in roughly 4 forms and they all die pretty easily. But on the other hand, the encounters with the Baker family can wreck your nerves. As Jack stalks you through the corridors of the Baker mansion, it can be pretty haunting at first, but eventually it just becomes routine. Run away, then hide and wait for the verbal cue to indicate he's lost you. That being said, Resident Evil does show some remarkable restraint, avoiding the overuse of jump scares in favour of simply toying with you and playing with your expectations. The amount of times I'd walk into a room and see the grandmother sitting calmly always got my heart beating a little harder, yet never did she jump at me, and by never explicitly reacting, it made her appearance as a whole lot more terrifying. The Baker Mansion in itself is nice to look at, even though it's kind of in disrepair and slowly rotting away. It's not quite on the scale or the design levels of the Spencer Mansion, but it's nicely designed and encourages backtracking and exploring in a way that feels thought out and not a way to waste your time. There's also plenty of reading materials to be found scattered throughout the game that provide insight and other information about the Baker family. But Resident Evil 7 does have 2 main weaknesses. For a game around survival and resource management, it features several boss fights which not only feel out of place, but just aren't very interesting from a gameplay sense. The majority of puzzles aren't very challenging either. While there's one series of puzzles that were incredibly interesting and unique to work out, the majority were very simple and easy in a way that just wasn't as satisfying as some of the puzzles from earlier entries. But Resident Evil 7 is a game split into 2 clear halves. The first, a violent grindhouse film and video game form. The second half is much more old school Resident Evil. Cold, haunting corridors accompany the game's focus on delving into the history and starting to unravel the mysteries behind the Baker family before leading to the game's ending, which I won't spoil it, but it leaves me seriously scratching my head in disbelief, and it has me asking a ton of questions which I really want an answer to. And this is not a bad thing. I actually really like the fact that it's managed to invoke this kind of reaction out of me. After the faults of games such as Resident Evil 6 and Revelations 2, Resident Evil 7 feels like a step in the right direction. It still has its problems, and I'd argue the game's first half is much stronger than the second. The campaign also came up a little short for me. I didn't feel like I was rushing through it in any way, but somehow managed to finish it in 6 hours. But I'm planning to head back in at some point, because I did really enjoy my time with the game, though I wonder how much I might like it with prior knowledge of the game's more shocking moments. So at the end of this review, I am awarding Resident Evil 7 3 out of 5.